Welcome, Robocops, cyber fugitives, and pissing aliens, to episode 406 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 9th of June, 2021, and featuring K-9, Regeneration, written by Shane Armstrong and S.P. Krause, and starring John Leeson, Philippa Coulthard, Keegan Joyce, Daniel Weber, and Robert Maloney. I am Bill Sylvia, the writer in black, and I can already tell it's going to be hell to find screen caps of this series. With me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
Good evening.
Mad Matt Winchell.
Oh, my legs are barking.
And Thomas Fireheart.
This is a weird rabbit hole to fall down.
Also, wasn't it puking, not pissing?
Yeah, it was
puking.
some kind of weird vomit.
He was marking his territory.
With
and
puke.
Definitely seemed to be at a low angle to me. I don't know.
Well, their heads aren't as high as our
coming
heads.
out
They're
the
technically
mouth.
turtles.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but they mentioned a couple times it was vomited out.
That's
Yeah.
what they did mention vomit, but I didn't connect the two concepts. But I guess maybe I should have.
I guess it was purely liquid coming out. the
Yeah,
mouth,
that's the
so-
thing. It was just, all I saw was a liquid stream, and I
Alien
couldn't quite
creatures,
tell
what do
where
I
it was
know?
coming from. Right.
Well, I will say I definitely hope they don't piss out of the same hole they're supposed to eat. Just saying.
You don't know. They could be a one-holer. You never know.
I mean, owls are technically.
Indeed.
So Matt, do you want to share how your week has been first?
Oh, today's been a wondrous day. I started my day off today suddenly for no inexplicable reason, waking up around 5:40ish this morning, going, "What the hell is this even?" and rolling back over until my alarm finally went off around 6:30. Then I proceeded to have my normal waking up morning, although a little more need to get up and go because today was my first day on my new job. I am now the shelf stalker and truck unloader for the local Family Dollar. I have met some of my coworkers. So far, I can't say there's a bad one in the bunch. Very proactive boss to the point that she seemed to be getting a little tired by the end of my shift, but she just has so much to do because apparently she's trying to help like 3 other stores. But yeah, I unloaded a truck, got everything onto essentially 6-wheeled carts that do the little seesaw thing so they can more easily get over bumps and stuff. And I learned the price gun. I learned how to put those little security pins into clothing and the security stickers onto some of our contents on shelves that need those stickers. That I unloaded about a quarter or so of one cart and emptied out half of the food cart on my own today. And that was a job that lasted me from 8 this morning till 5 this evening. And I will possibly be doing it again tomorrow, depending upon what the area manager has to say about it. If he wants to have a say on it. As far as the other manager is concerned, I am there from 8 until 5. She has no worries about it. So yeah, that's been my full day today.
Yep. So congrats on starting a new job. Hopefully it works out well in the long term.
Hopefully, yeah. If nothing else, hopefully if anything does go wrong, hopefully it'll help me rebound anyways.
On the recreational standpoint, you started a new game.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's a thing too. On Tuesday, I started live streaming Crystallis, a game that I've previously been an easier version of for Game Boy, a much easier game. But I have had experience with the NES version before, and this is more or less what I'm also streaming. It is on a PC version called SNK 40th Anniversary that this is a part of, and it's one of, like, I want to say 10 or so titles on there.
It is a game that I personally have played a bajillion times. So I kind of watched Matt stream and gave him a bunch of pointers today.
Yeah, I forgot
Oh,
about the slide trick.
Yeah, it's
I knew it, but I had
Chris-
completely forgotten until you mentioned. I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
Crystallis is one of my favorite games. It's or at least from the old Nintendo era. It was one of those things where it came out just like after Zelda. And
So it
it's
was
like,
basically an
wow, this
excellent
is
follow-up.
close enough to Zelda that this feels right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
There is definitely some Zelda elements to the fact that a lot of the advancement in the game actually garners you new weapons and abilities. But at the same time, there's a little touch of Final Fantasy in there, as you have to go around milking monsters for XP and money, and then use that money to upgrade your defensive gear.
Yeah, so it was like right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
So I have played this I don't know how many times. So
Like I said, I played through the easy version on Game Boy. Nintendo apparently tweaked that down quite a bit. Because I definitely noticed, there's stuff that can block my weapons. Here we go, sunshine.
I'm kind of playing along and keeping an eye on what Matt's doing. I'm hopefully going to be able to catch him live so I can say, nope, not there.
No, stop. No. Wrong. In the chat.
No, you don't need to run around in the poison forest for half an hour, Matt. Go back and talk to the dude, which is what I was screaming at the screen while I was watching you.
Well, I actually what I had to do, I had to actually go in there, and I think I had to encounter the village first. Then I had to go back, talk to the dude.
Yes, you
Then
did.
I had to go back into the forest, save the child, bring him back to the village, and then I got stuff that I needed to find the boss.
Yeah, but what you didn't need to do is go to the village and then wander around the forest for half an hour. Going, I know the boss spawned somehow.
I know the boss spawned somehow, and it's right here. Where's the kid that I need to do this? Because I forget how, but in one way or another, the kid is responsible for me being able to get to this boss.
It was fun of me just looking at the screen, going no, and saying knowing I couldn't type it in chat because I was watching it like 6 hours later. I can't remember what I was doing while you were streaming it. I might have been asleep. Actually, that wasn't my best day.
Well, I didn't finish streaming until like 9 o'clock last night, so...
Yeah, my back blew out. So I was like, I could be on Conan Exiles today on Aaron's computer. No. And I'm a little Conan'd out. I'm going to lie here, and I'm going to just... Oh, it's actually cool in the bedroom. Because Aaron vacuumed out the filter on our air conditioner.
Ah.
And suddenly the temperature in the house dropped between 5 to 10 degrees. It shows how much that filter actually makes a difference.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, it's cool in here. And I could sit in here and possibly catch up on that sleep I've been missing the last 3 days. Or I could try to go out and ruin my back further playing Conan on Aaron's computer.
Talking about sleep, at some point over the weekend, my body decided to switch to the schedule of sleeping from 4 a.m. to around sometime between noon and 2 p.m. But I have a 10 a.m. meeting tomorrow, so I'm going to have to fix that real quick.
Whereas
I've been trying to go to bed early, but it usually just results in me tossing and turning, pissing a bunch of times, and then falling asleep at 4.
Tell Holly from Red Dwarf you want to wake up alarm.
Me pissing a bunch of times, but that's called medication.
Ask Holly from Red Dwarf to make you a wake up alarm. Literally every siren in the known universe will go off.
Well, the problem is if I haven't fallen asleep until 4 and I have nothing to do early in the morning, then my body just looks around, I eat breakfast, and then I go back to bed.
Well, that's why
I don't function unless I have something like adrenaline to make me function.
Well, you see, that's why the alarm on my phone plays death metal.
Awaken, awaken, awaken.
Whoa, yeah.
Awaken, awaken, awaken.
Like I also play loud songs in the alarm, but once I've had my coffee, had breakfast, and then sat around for another hour, at that point the song wears off, and it's just, am I awake enough to stay up, or am I going back to bed?
I'm
Uh,
pretty sure my
Yeah.
alarms are all my own remixes.
I
Nice.
usually then stagger into the shower, and it's just like, oh, okay,
Mm.
awake. Fuck yes, okay, yep, yeah, okay, yeah, that was a little cold. Okay, I'm awake now. Um. So, anybody else have anything happen this week?
Well, at this point today, while my voice is still a bit wonky, I am pretty much fine now by comparison. I mean, I've still got a bit of a stuffy nose, but it's not what it was before. And yeah, it was like I just woke up today and was like, oh, outside of a stuffy nose, and again, my voice being a bit wonk, I actually feel kind of fine. I mean, it's a bit cold today, but other than that, yeah. So that's nice because being sick for like over a week now was like, well, this fucking sucks. So thank God this is finally over and done with, seemingly.
On the mend,
And I
yeah.
got like, and yeah, like when I went into the doctors on Monday, one of my ears was so clogged that they were just like, okay, do you just want us to like flush that out? And at that point, I was just like, fuck it, sure.
Go for
Yeah.
it, because I can't. There's nothing else that wouldn't hurt
And
anything.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
go in to get an exam next week, I'm probably gonna have them do that too, because dear
Mm.
God.
Yeah, because the science is everything is connected. That includes both your nose and your ears, and it's just such a pain.
Yeah, I'm
Mm.
also going to have them refer me to an ENT specialist.
Yeah, and it definitely shows how backed up with wax my left ear was because um the second time, like, it took 2 tries on the left ear just to get it all, and the nurse was like, there's a bit that won't go down the sink if you want to have a look," and like, it's the flat bit
Instinctively, you gotta
over it
look.
where and it's like the flat thing over the sinkhole rather than just like an open one
Mhm.
that it could go
Mhm.
through. So it was just like, oh, so that's why that ear was blocked up. That
Just this
fucking
massive, nasty
chunk
piece of
of
work. Yeah.
wax, was like finally shook loose. So thank God for that. I mean, now my right ear is playing up, which they also had like one go at, and it wasn't anywhere near as plugged up. So, but even then, now that's having trouble. So I'm like, well, shit, that's probably just like a side effect of them cleaning my ears out. But
Yes, it is, because
Yeah.
I get the eardrops at home, and I notice I
Mm.
will clean out my right ear, which is my problem ear, and immediately, like a day or two after I do that, my left ear will start bothering me something fierce.
But then it'll
Mm.
eventually calm down, usually. Oh, and since it's safe to play, this is my wake up music. It's a video game remix. Yeah, that's your get up and go in the morning.
I would be curious how someone who lives in a house with other family members can play music loud enough to be a music alarm without waking up everybody else. Unless they're all up before you.
Aaron's usually up before me, but
My father usually is going to bed about the time I'm waking up, and my mother's already gone to work by the time I get up. Even with this new job, she's already gone. She's out the door like by 5 o'clock.
I got used to waking up to very soft alarms because an alarm loud enough to like get me up and moving would normally like it would wake up my sister 5 times before it woke me up. So I just over time got used to softer and softer alarms. And now I don't have to because I live alone.
That being said, most of my music I do on my computer, so No one has to hear me making it,
Right.
except for maybe if my keyboard thumps hard enough.
But here's the thing: after having that as my alarm for so long, I used, one of the regular alarms on my phone for something. If
You
I'm
just
asleep,
sleep right
I
through
will.
it.
I will sleep right through it.
Yep.
Mm.
I believe my buddy Mike actually has one of those doo-doo alarms, and I'm just like,
Right. See
right through it.
that's what I had to get used.
Until it enhances itself to constant sheer beeping, in which case he finally gets up.
That's what I had to get used to, because anything louder than that, and my sister would be mad at me all day.
I've just gotten so used to having to use alarms to wake up because of sleeping weird hours, that I'll be watching a movie or something, and an alarm will go off in that, and it'll like get my adrenaline going. I'll just be like, "Fuck!" Like I might have been tired, and then that'll happen, and I'm like, "Ah."
I think that's why they usually use fire alarms that sound nothing like a real fire alarm. But I feel like we've gone
Yeah,
on
I
to
was about to
quite a few
say.
topics. So
Yeah, I was about to do that.
all right.
So three of us were about ready to go for it.
Yep.
So yeah.
So we agree on tonight's show.
All right, on tonight's show, we've got birthdays news. I don't have any rumors to talk about. We have a little bit of geek talk. Yeah.
Couple smidgens, yep.
And then our episode summary. Bill did you want to do the whole elements thing or not?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
We can briefly go into that at the very
So
least.
we will talk about the elements of K-9. I may have some rather interesting things to say.
Mm.
And then our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So moving on down to birthdays, we have 4 birthdays. First of which is Penelope Wilton, who played Harriet Jones, MP for Flydale North.
Yes, we know who she is.
From 2005 to 2008, she turned 75. Next, we have on the 4th, Julie Gardner, who was the executive producer from 2005 to 2008. She worked close with Russell T Davies in bringing New Who to the big screen, or to the television. She turned 52. Next, on the same day, is Bradley Walsh, who played Graham O'Brien, companion of the 13th Doctor until earlier this year. He turned 61. And finally, yesterday was the birthday of Colin Baker, the Doctor from 1985 to 86, and he turned 78.
Britain's greatest troll.
So happy birthday, Penelope, Julie, Bradley, and Colin. And next, of course, we do have a lost story. Daenerys Heyman, who played the White Witch in The Daemons, Olive Hawthorne, died earlier this week. Or actually, I think might have been actually today. Daenerys Heyman has had a long career in British film and television. She grew up in Kensington, London, and was educated at Cheltenham Ladies College. Following that, she did some repertory work in the theater and finally made a film debut in The Bells of St. Trinian's in 1954 in a small uncredited role.
Mm.
This led to a series of small parts in such shows as The Citadel, Citizen James, Somerset Maugham Hour, Crossroads, Steptoe and Son, Zed Cars, The Dickie Henderson Show, Beggar My Neighbor, Armchair Theater, Ours is a Nice House, The London Line, The Morecambe Wise Show, The Witch's Brew, The Small World of Samuel Tweet, The Dick Emery Show, The Basil Brush Show, and One Foot in the Grave, where she eventually became kind of typecast as playing this rich, eccentric, basically neighbor lady. And it was in this kind of thing that Doctor Who saw her in 1971 and cast her as Miss Hawthorne. Of course, she had some great screen chemistry with John Pertwee, and that became a very memorable role for her. So much so that she returned to the character in the 2010s for Koch Media's The White Witch of Devil's End.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just a few weeks ahead of her 92nd birthday when she died. There's no news of what she died from.
Well, sadly, at that age, it could be just about anything.
Yeah, it could. I mean, that's, a good decade into what we call a good run.
Mm-hmm.
So, who knows what it is, but she had a good life. She was a bit actor, but she, had plenty of work as a bit actor.
So long, and thanks for all the Damons.
So moving on. The Doctor Who cast were spotted in Bristol filming. All three of the main cast were seen in various shots. Plus, there was one particular picture I want to see, because the rest of them are just people getting in and out of cars.
Mm-hmm. And that particular picture, I assume, is the last one.
The last one, yes. Where we see what looked like the Doctor Who not the visual effects, the practical effects department unloading a Dalek into Bristol.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a better look at this thing.
They have a blanket over it, but you can still see the Dalek bumps.
Looks like an RT Dalek.
Yeah, it is. It looks like a classic gold, and by classic, New Who classic.
I'm more, yeah.
Yeah, New Who classic bronze. Yeah.
Which it's interesting. How many times they redesigned the Daleks? They go right back to the.
At
bronze
this
one,
point,
yeah.
At this point, RTD's Dalek might be the most used Dalek in all of 58 years of Doctor Who.
Definitely the longest lasting. I mean, let's see. That premiered in 2005.
Yep.
Which means that particular design is 16 years old.
How long did the Doctor Who movie Daleks last? At least during the black and white era, I think, for the most part.
The black and white era, and I think they were used in Day of. Then they were replaced by Death 2. And then those were replaced by the Genesis Daleks, which were used repeatedly
for a while then, until like the late 80s.
Yeah,
mid-80s.
Until Remembrance, when they have the
Remembrance had the
Imperial.
2 new sets, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it just is barely edging out the movie Daleks then at this point.
It does seem at this point, I think we can safely say that it seems like both companions are in for the full 8, for the full or close to the full 8 episode season, because we've seen them all filming a few times by now, I think.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice the picture above that showed Nick Briggs.
Oh.
So he's there.
So it's another Dalek. Okay.
So even Briggs is there, getting ready to warm up his voice.
Because he'll sit there like off the set with the frickin' modulator.
With the modulator and going at it, yeah.
Which is funny, because if there's any main character of Doctor Who that can still work from home, it's Nick Briggs.
They've tried. Well, you gotta remember that they tried to do the whole voice without controlling everything kind of deal, and it doesn't always work. But I suppose maybe he could do the voiceover later, and someone else on set could just doing their own take on the voice.
Yes, that could do.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But it wouldn't feel the same without Briggs actually being there doing it.
I mean, he usually redubs his own voice afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, if there's like any echo and stuff,
your own voice. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're saying they wouldn't have like an iPhone on speaker with Dalek voice coming out of it?
No, because you need someone to actually be able to properly do the button, because as he's doing the voice, he's doing the lights too.
Mm-hmm.
See, I guess I never really thought about it. I kind of assumed the lights were like wired in, like it was like, oh, if there's a loud enough sound coming into the microphone, the
No,
lights
no,
turn
no.
on?
No.
No,
way
even then.
The way it used to work
Yeah.
back in the original days is the Dalek operator did the
Do the
lights.
switch, yeah.
Because there was a little switch in the thing, and he tried to time it to the voice. But you'll notice in classic episodes, it doesn't 100% sync up.
Right.
When Nick Briggs took over for New Who, he has the lights on a remote trigger. So when he talks, he also pushes the light button in sync with what he's saying.
Look, now that we're talking about it, I think half of me thought that it was just always done in post.
No.
That the lights weren't actually present on set.
Shame. No, that's a
Sometimes
practical effect
they
you need to do
weren't.
right.
I don't think we've seen video of them filming a dialogue scene, so
I have.
Sometimes the lights were done in post.
If they were like the flying ones, yeah.
No, not the flying ones. I mean, they had cases before where they would get the Dalek prop out and the lights wouldn't work. And it wasn't just a bulb issue, it was a wiring issue. And they're like, oh, we'll fix that in post. But that was the old days. The new ones are a lot more reliable.
Okay, yeah, I can see that maybe being a thing back in the old days, depending on how they did it. If they did it right.
Back when we have 2 hours to shoot this scene, because that's as long as we've had the place rented for.
We'll find a way to fix it our way. We'll get our digital guys on it.
Speaking of which, apparently K-9, since we're doing the first episode of it today, they did something, what is it, the 20-some-odd episodes were filmed in a span of 18 weeks, start to finish.
Yeah. I can kind of see that.
They were filmed in, like, in New Zealand or someplace like that.
Australia.
But yeah, they
were on Australia, yeah.
The page I happened to see that on was basically like, so if it looks like everything was done in one take, it might have been, and there's why.
Was it actually filmed in Australia? I know it was filmed for Australia.
It was filmed in.
Yep.
Okay.
Filmed in Brisbane.
My home state's capital, which is why at least one scene is like, I think I know where that was shot.
And meanwhile, K-9 is like, this is London.
Yeah, this is London.
Yeah.
Because it was filmed as a co-production for a couple of countries, and then it was exported to England. But
so are we probably done with that article?
Oh,
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. I figured we didn't want to talk too much about K-9 until
we don't want to get too much to K-9 until we actually get to that point.
Well, we were talking the behind-the-scenes production stuff.
Right. Yeah, a little bit. I just didn't want us to go too far.
Okay.
Big finish.
Yes. And there's one new release this week, The Robots Volume 4, with Nicola Walker, Claire Rushbrook, Pamela Salem, and Gregory DePaulnay. That is once again with the Vach bots.
Welcome back, 84.
What's that?
Welcome back, 84. The robot DA4.
Yep. And of course, Nicola Walker plays Liv Shankoff, the Eighth Doctor companion, who's somehow involved in all of this. I don't know. We haven't done any of these really.
They're always somehow involved.
Anyway,
looks like it's an mining machine too.
Yeah, that's all the news we have. Well, most of the pictures I think are taken from Robots of Death because that's
all redrawn from them. Yeah,
because that's all the actual visuals we have. Otherwise, we'd just have people standing around in a recording booth. Anyway, that's all the news we have. So Geek Talk.
All right. Yes. So the first thing is we have to talk about is that the first episode of Loki streamed this week, and obviously it's too early to give any sort of final review. But as we've been doing with other Disney Plus shows, I figured we could give at least a bit of first impressions. Oh, I know. I watched it. Thomas watched it. I don't think anybody
Mhm.
else has. Is that right?
No, I've been a little distracted
Mhm.
by my back.
Mm.
But got busy. New job.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Finger
like
guns.
other Disney, yeah, it would have been a bad idea for you to stay up until midnight Pacific time and then go to work at 8.
I still didn't get to sleep till 1.
You would have been up later if you were late waiting for Loki.
Probably.
But like other Disney Plus shows, it follows directly off of Endgame. In this case, I'm assuming it's safe to spoil Endgame at this point.
I think most of us have seen
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 years at this point, yeah.
So in Endgame, one of the time travel missions ended up being botched, and Loki escaped with the Tesseract from the set of Avengers 2012. This show picks up directly off of that, with that Loki basically being picked up by the Marvel equivalent of the angry brain guys from Rick and Morty, who basically take him into custody, process him, and put him on trial until they're like, hey, wait, maybe we kind of need him. And then some other hijinks ensue. Not to go any deeper than that, because any farther would probably be spoilery. But it definitely gives some insight. I would say there's not a clear good guy, bad guy here, which I think is a little refreshing for this kind of series. Very much the time cops are very much, cops, and I think they portray that fairly well without really coming down strongly on any sort of obvious political agenda, but they're also not like many other series we would be and be like, oh, look, they're enforcing the laws and therefore perfect in every way. They're not like that either. What would I say? It's kind of comedic, like you would expect a series with Loki to be. It's definitely the more recent take on Loki, where he's kind of the butt of everybody's jokes rather than being a real villain you can take seriously.
Well, to
Thomas,
be
anything you
fair,
want to
he
add to
doesn't
any of
always
that?
take himself seriously, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's definitely an interesting start, and also interesting as well because by virtue of being the Loki from the first Avengers movie, it's not, the Loki we know by the end of Endgame. So it's like,
Right.
okay, you essentially this gets to like, okay, how do we make this Loki work in this setting?
Mhm.
And they essentially achieve that. But yeah, it's
It's
fun in that
basically like
case.
the
I
start
mean,
of his redemption arc in that sense. If
yeah,
he goes the same way, of course.
yeah. And yeah, like even Loki refers to them as such, but the TVA are essentially just like bureaucrats in that
Mhm.
they're very like all about paperwork and all this and that and whatever.
Right.
Um,
All about paperwork, but they also, if you don't have your paperwork straight, they won't hesitate to vaporize you in line.
yeah. As like it's very like as big as Loki's ego is, he's made aware very quickly the scope of what he's dealing with, to the point that it is very much like these are people basically like, oh, aren't you cute?
Hmm.
Like he's being all like, I'm a god and shit, and they're all just like, uh-huh. And it's like
Sure,
very
son.
much,
Yeah.
yeah,
oh, sure you are. You're the 5th this week.
Yeah, they're
pretty much.
right. And well,
Close.
there's a scene that kind of implies that, yeah, pretty more or less exactly that.
Mm.
But they basically exist outside of time, and they're kind of, in a way, they're almost like what Time Lords or the Time Agency are built up to be, without having the piss taken out of them. So in
And
this,
more of a deliberate 70s
Mhm.
aesthetic and more of an American 70s aesthetic.
yeah, they do take the piss out of them a little bit in a context that makes sense, but I don't want to go too deep into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna continue watching. I don't have like I don't really have any strong feelings about the Loki character myself. I'm not feeling as invested as I was with WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I'm curious. I'm curious to see where they're going to go. I'm curious to see how dark it's going to get because there's implications that it might. I'm curious to see how many Lokis there are, how many alternate realities they go to. So I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I just don't have a strong emotional feeling one way or another
I've
just yet.
also heard hints of who the main villain might be, or at least it's not the first time this villain has been referenced in the series, different series so far.
I mean, they do tell us in this well, I mean, I think it's in the trailers too. The main villain is Loki, but how many Lokis are there?
No, I'm not talking about a Loki.
Ah, okay. So
Speaking of
you're probably
quotes,
talking about
gods.
you're probably talking about information that hasn't been officially revealed yet.
No, he's made an appearance. Technically, made an appearance twice now. He made an appearance also during WandaVision. He's more of a special effect, but it's an appearance nonetheless.
I mean, it's one of those
I take
things
it you're
where
confused?
they haven't.
I'm a little because I don't think anyone
I
appeared.
know.
The
I have
speculation didn't appear in WandaVision,
Yeah.
so
I have an idea of who Matt means, and my stance after this episode and a particular scene was, okay, they're just trolling us with this now.
mhm.
Well, they might be trolling, or it might just be hinting for down the road, because that villain is particularly interested in one of my favorite characters in the Marvel franchise. So, just saying, waiting.
That actually reminds me, from what I hear, the Time Variance Authority mostly appears in Thor comics and in Fantastic Four comics. Obviously, we have a main character who comes from Thor comics, but that could potentially be a way to connect to things like the Citadel of Reeds, or I don't know if it's Citadel still, but yeah. So it could be a connection to Fantastic Four, or it could absolutely not. And of course, everybody knows there's a time traveling supervillain that I think is connected to the Fantastic Four as well. That could potentially be related.
Was there? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I believe Kang is connected to the Fantastic Four, but
Kang. That name does not ring a bell off the top of my head.
Kang the Conqueror, I think, is the best known time travel villain in Marvel.
Speaking of, isn't he showing up in a... I forget if he's showing up in a movie or a show.
I don't remember
him being
confirmed for anything.
They have an actor cast
oh, shoot.
at the very least.
You know what? Now that you say that, I remember hearing that. Let's see.
I forget what for, though.
Well, it might be Doctor Strange.
That's possible. Oh, and of course, Google's wiki. Okay. Oh, there we go. He's set to make his film debut in Ant-Man 3.
Okay.
There we go.
Which is also probably going to involve time travel anyway, because it's Ant-Man.
It's Hank Pym and all the rest of them. Yeah.
At it. Yeah.
I have yet to see Ant-Man 2.
Hmm.
It's one of those. I mean, I have access to it. I just haven't watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually saw my parents watching one of the Ant-Man movies the other day.
So that's me and Thor 2. I keep being like, I should watch Thor 2 and then watching something else.
No, you can miss Thor 2.
I've been told multiple times, yeah, you can miss Thor 2. That's sadly
Eccleston's performance is not the best because they royally ruined his character. And the only thing that even carries the movie is the Thor and Loki dialogue. The rest of the movie can go to hell and die. Thor Ragnarok, however, is good.
Right.
So
So Thomas, what are your thoughts? Any different from mine about the series so far?
No, not really. It's just a matter of I'm probably more interested than you are, but just because this is all new shit to me, and that's always despite what comic companies usually think when they make these movies, I actually like finding more new shit like this, where it's like, I don't know who the TVA are. And so it's really cool seeing them and their weird prequel Star Wars place. I mean, that's basically what it looks like when you see a shot of the outside of it. It's very like, holy shit, this is like
Coruscant or something.
yeah, essentially you'd half think. It's like very
I do
gigantic.
hope considering that the Citadel was built at the end of time, that they go to a restaurant at some point and have one or two other cheeky references.
I'm thinking about having the meal of the day. How about you?
The dish of the day.
Dish of the day.
So I should go on to the next movie then.
Sure.
I think so. I think you
Okay.
covered this one.
Yep. So I watched Incredibles 2.
Fantastic Four 2.
Shut up, Matt.
Yes, it's part of my series of watching all the Fantastic Four movies. And I believe Incredibles 2 came out well after Incredibles 1.
Oh yeah,
Yep,
by like
there
a
was-
good 15, 20
Mhm.
years.
Yeah,
And
there was
that
at least
might-
14. You get.
That might be why, in so many ways, it feels like a retread of the first movie. The villain's not the same, but it's similar in some ways. The themes of like, we need to learn how to work together. We need the father to learn how to handle not being the main character of the family at all times. That sort of thing. It feels very, very similar themes to the first movie. The biggest difference at this point is that the kids are a little bit older. And they're not that much older, but the baby has powers instead of them not knowing that yet.
Actually, if you owned the DVD of the first one,
Mhm.
you knew that.
No, the audience knew that, but the characters did not.
Mm.
The characters don't find out until a few scenes into this movie, and some of them later. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because Jack Attacks was,
Mhm.
I think, only on the DVD.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it was like during the credit, like right before, like a post credit scene or something, that he showed he had powers, but nobody witnessed it.
Yeah, it's when he's kidnapped by
That's right.
and
That's the very end of the
he-
movie, yeah.
That's why the babysitter was
Yeah.
freaking out, because he had powers.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Jack Attack was essentially the bits with the babysitter.
Okay. But yeah, the girl that Violet asks out at the very end of the first movie. The boy that Violet asks out at the very end of the first movie. There's issues like they address like what follows from that scene immediately after, as part of this movie. So on one hand, they very successfully follow immediately after. It's not like a lot of movies where they make a sequel 10 years later and it's like a shitty cash grab. So props there. But I think they lose a little bit on the ingenuity front. I feel like it really feels like it's almost like, okay, I watched this movie in, I'm guessing 2008. I kind of remember it, and I'm going to watch the sequel in 2018, and it's going to remind me of those memories without really taking any new steps. Which isn't to say it's bad. I just feel like it could have been a lot more original. If you like the first one, you're still probably going to like the second.
Mhm.
But if you're watching them within the same month of each other, like I did, I think I did anyway. But if you're watching them in a short term, you might be a little bit disappointed.
It is one of those weird things where you would think they would take advantage of the gap, especially because I recall the actor who plays Mr. Incredible's voice is kind of going to shit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Craig T.
if
Nelson.
so like if you'd aged them up, you might have been able to explain that a bit. Like maybe you could open with the Underminer stuff and then like cut forward. But yeah.
Just to let you know, there was 14 years difference between the two.
14 years, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original was 2004. This one came out in 2018.
And this is one where I'm surprised The Incredibles never got a TV spin-off because
people-
especially with Disney Plus now.
If it had come out in '94, there is a 200% chance that it would have.
When it came out, we were all waiting for it. I was waiting for the Incredibles TV series. I was waiting for all this stuff, and nothing materialized.
Right. I forgot we talked about the time frame a little bit before because of Fantastic Four, but I imagine that might be an issue that like the Incredibles came out, then Fantastic Four immediately afterward, and then Iron Man, and so maybe they were like, wait, if we do superheroes now, like there's a chance. Like I don't think did they own Marvel yet?
They might have owned bits of Marvel, but they didn't own like Fantastic Four yet.
Right, but I mean, in terms of like having any concerns about being sued or anything, if they tried to do a whole series,
they did not own Marvel at this point. As of 2004, it wasn't until about 2012, 2013 that they bought Marvel.
I always thought they owned Marvel by 2008.
No, like the easiest way to tell is basically all of Phase 1 of the MCU have Paramount logos in front of them.
Yeah, it was
pretty much once the Paramount logos stop.
Actually not quite. They bought Disney bought Marvel after the Avengers had been filmed, but before it had been aired.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I guess at that point it would have been that they finished up their deal with Paramount first.
I always thought that Marvel developing its film studio happened because they had Disney's resources already.
No, they were working on it independently.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was technically a thing they were starting on their own with other studios originally.
That makes the first Iron Man all the more impressive then.
Yeah. It actually makes the Phase 1 of the MCU all the more impressive because at that time it was all these different studios coming together and going, yeah, we'll do this and we'll let you use our characters, yada yada yada, back and forth. Because at that point, the Incredible Hulk was also part of it.
Hulk was part of it. Iron Man was part of it.
Yeah, it was Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, which was produced by a different studio than Iron Man.
Yeah. Which is why there hasn't been an Incredible Hulk #2.
Correct. And then Paramount spent the money making the Avengers. And Disney swooped in, bought everything. And basically got all the profits from it.
Yeah.
In what I consider to be the ultimate dick move to Paramount ever.
Yeah, poor Paramount's been suffering ever since.
They got to put their logo on the front of it, but only after the Disney logo. So it said Disney, then it said Paramount. And Disney got all the money. And Paramount spent all the money. And Paramount's been staggering around, half falling apart ever since.
Yeah. I mean, I know the Paramount logo persists for at least another 1 or 2 Marvel movies after that, but then it just becomes the Marvel logo and that's it.
Marvel and then Disney, or just the Marvel. Actually, I think it's just the Marvel.
It's just straight up Marvel. Yeah, Disney hasn't put theirs in front of any of the companies they own outside of Pixar, really.
Yeah, but I do remember the fact that it was right at the point of the Avengers happening that this happened. They might have bought it just before, but that was when the enforcement arm kicked in and said, no, this is our stuff. I just thought it was the ultimate dick move because, like I said, Paramount spent $200 million making the Avengers, and Disney made a frickin' $1 billion off of it. And Paramount got, I don't know how much, but it wasn't $1 billion. I don't know if they even got their $200 million back.
I would assume that maybe them getting most of that back would have been the reason why they let Disney take control.
No, they had no choice. Disney owned the license now. They owned the IP. So it was either
Paramount's cash cow is Star Trek.
and Star Trek was starting to fail miserably by then. Into darkness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And of course, the other things that it had was the Transformers franchise
That was
and the
slowly
Teenage
tanking.
Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise, both of which were fucked up by Michael Bay.
Yeah, Michael Bay
So-
completely effed up Ninja Turtles. I don't care what anyone has to say. I
So-
hear the second one's better, but that's not saying much.
Mid 2000s, Paramount Studios was doing well. 2015, circling the toilet. The only reason it's still going now is because CBS bought it back into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's kind of that thing, and this is a complete and total tangent.
Yep. Anyways. So if you like the
Anyways,
first one, you like the second one.
Yeah, the second one I would say is good, but give it a break in between watching movies, or it'll feel like a rehash.
Okie doke.
Okay.
So that being said, K-9, I think we wanted to talk a bit about it before we get into it.
No, we want to do
Sure.
the summary
Yeah,
and then
summary
we want
first.
Oh,
I'd
summary
say.
first. Okay, so it's
Okay.
Randy that's doing summary.
Yes.
And
And be prepared for a bit of an esoteric summary.
okay, got the stopwatch ready.
All right. Just a second. Do I have any left? A little bit to wet my throat. Okay, go ahead.
All right, starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
So, in the cyberpunk-esque dystopian near future of London, we see two men in black, obvious government men in black, delivering a briefcase to a weird guy in a mansion-like building. He says it's from one of the fallen angels, and he basically takes the case and walks away. Meanwhile, somewhere nearby, one of the floating propaganda posters is being hacked by a young man named Starkey. He is interrupted by a young girl who basically wants to help. He brushes her off, and while they're arguing, the two are basically found by the robotic policemen of the era. They make a run for it and eventually wind up in the same building. What's the chances? They go around just as this professor person is finishing an experiment. We see basically a rift in time and space open, and the professor seems eager to get something back. It looks like a family, before Starkey, boy genius that he is, trips over the power cable and screws everything up. He quickly plugs it back in, but instead of this family, it brings in a bunch of aliens who basically start trashing the place. He's cornered, and the aliens basically vomit some kind of stink on him. The rift, however, is still open, and as the others are trying to get out of the way, a robotic dog appears. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen, in his classic form. So K-9 then proceeds to start shooting the aliens, telling the humans to escape, while he eventually has to self-destruct. The humans get out. K-9 blows up, leaving pieces all over the place. And in the confusion, one of the aliens escapes. K-9, before he blew up, identified the aliens as, what was it, Jigson? Jixon. And as they're doing this, this other wormy guy comes in, basically a delivery boy, errand boy for the professor, basically insults the two kids, and while they're doing all this, contacts the police. And while they're arguing about this, apparently a piece of K-9 that Starkey salvaged from the wreckage turns itself back on and recreates a new K-9. made of pure CGI. K-9 then goes off to reorient himself just as the cops show up, arrest Starkey, and haul him to the police station, where he is sentenced to 6 months in a virtual reality prison. While he's there, the girl hacks in, tries to convince him to help to escape and do all this, but he's not buying it, because while she's trying to convince him of all this and the fact that the government's actually abducting aliens and doing experiments, she gets a call from her mother. Apparently she's supposed to be in ballet class. However, shortly after this, the remaining Jixen attacks the police station, because apparently once they spray the person with that scent, they will follow them till the end of time and kill them. Joy, oh joy. Anyway, that just causes Starkey to escape. He gets back to the professor's place, and the professor hides him from the cops. He has a conversation with apparently the head detective. Says, nope, not seen him. Not seen this weird dog-like thing either. And we're basically left at the end of it with Starkey. What was the other guy's name? George. And the girl basically arguing in front of the doorway.
Georgie is the girl.
George is the girl.
Darius, I think, is the professor's assistant.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I lose the cast in this really quickly. Anyway, so yeah, Darius Pike. Okay, yeah. All three of them arguing with an open front door, which is the greatest place to have if you're a fugitive from the law. And that's where we end it.
All right. So I take that as your ending.
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes and I guess about 23 seconds.
Yeah, I did kind of draw it out a bit, because this is only a half-hour show, but there's so much stupid stuff. Anyway. But I haven't even gotten into the main part of that. So, we want to talk a bit about the elements of this show.
Mm-hmm.
What exists from the original K-9. First of all, this is not an official spin-off. So certain things cannot be used without the BBC suing them.
Hence K-9's case of amnesia.
Correct.
Yeah.
Although I wonder if that means Roman numerals are not allowed to be used, or if that was a fuck-up, or what.
What do you mean?
So he starts off as K-9 Mark 1, and then he becomes K-9 Mark 2 using Arabic numerals, not to be confused with K-9 Mark 2 using Roman numerals, who is in E-Space.
Correct. Now, you want to get this even more fucked up? How the fuck can K-9 Mark 1 do this? K-9 Mark 1 was built in the 50-odd century by Professor Marius.
Mm-hmm.
It had no real reference or access to Time Lord tech, except for the fact that it spent a great deal of time on Gallifrey with Leela. Now,
and traveling in the TARDIS. But we never really saw the Doctor modify K-9. We saw him modify Mark 2 all the time, but not Mark 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Mark 3 did not have any regenerating capabilities and needed the Doctor to come and fix him.
Correct. Furthermore, on Gallifrey, could you imagine Leela letting anyone else touch her robot dog?
Yeah.
Unless you
seriously?
trusted them a whole lot. They better be on some first name basis there.
Mm-hmm. So where did it suddenly get this power?
Yeah.
It's
it
a
very much
whole bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, it very much comes off as just narrative convenience.
It's not even narrative convenience. Yeah, it's legal necessity. Copyright law.
Well, yeah.
I don't know how he even got the rights to use K-9 for the 5 minutes he did.
He probably came. He probably came to a verbal agreement. With, I don't know, the BBC or whatever other parties had stakes, and said, here's an agreement. As long as we immediately change the design, that we can use the original design for, like you said, 5 minutes.
To be fair, even just to use the K-9 name, I think you had to come to some sort of agreement too, because
not really.
The K-9 creators own K-9, but they don't. The BBC owns the original design.
Yes. That's exactly what happens.
Right.
So they at least for the cameo design, they had to get.
So it was a conversation with the legal department at the BBC.
It's like the estate of Terry Nation owns the IP of the Daleks.
Mm-hmm.
The BBC owns the prop design.
Yeah.
So, if Terry Nation had ever gotten a Dalek series in the US like he had planned,
he would have had to
make totally different new looking Daleks, yeah.
Correct.
He would have had to make the Power Ranger Daleks or something.
Before they did the New Who Daleks,
and it's also why that the Doctor Who movies, when they did the Daleks,
they were only
redesigned the Daleks. Yeah.
Why the Hammer movies did the weird new stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though they would literally just take those and use them for the show afterwards anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's because the company that did it, AARP, sold it. Sold the props to the BBC. And sold the rights to the props to the BBC because they knew they weren't going to ever use them again.
Yeah, if Terry Nation wasn't going to just stick with them and keep making Dalek movies, yeah.
Although I kind of wish there was a Daleks Master Plan movie, because I feel like it would have been better than the serial.
Yeah, they would have had to chunk that down a lot.
It wouldn't have been 12 episodes for one thing.
Yeah, the problem was that by the time Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 was over, Dalek Mania was fading. It was, so they really didn't think there was enough interest to make a third movie. Otherwise, it probably would have been based on Master Plan.
Yeah, I think by that point they made that one. It would have been based on
Master Plan or The Chase.
Actually, yeah, The Chase is more likely because if they needed to pull budget.
The Chase would have been next, but I've been wrapping my head around whether they would or would not actually make a movie of The Chase, because The Chase is very part of the serialized format.
Oh, come on. A wacky...
a wacky hijinks chase through time and space, that totally would be like the third chapter of that particular series.
It wouldn't be it wouldn't be tied to the serial plot like it was in there, but it would be close enough.
It would be close enough that they would still bring back Peter Cushing, I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, they'd bring back Peter Cushing, considering how well
good Peter Cushing versus evil Peter Cushing, that would have been nice.
They could have, and they
that
probably
would have
wouldn't.
been interesting.
Probably would have had a completely different ending than the whole mechanoids thing, but they still would have had the Doctor and them running through time, being pursued by a bunch of Daleks. It would have been, and they probably would have thrown in as many 60 references as they could.
Oh yeah, too.
Like them landing in the Avengers or something, and I mean the British Avengers, not the Marvel Avengers. Just that kind of weird, wacky references.
Or any other references Hammer could put to it, yeah.
Why do you keep calling it Hammer? Because it wasn't Hammer Studios.
What wasn't Hammer involved? No, he was. No, Peter Cushing got hired because he was popular with the Hammer movies, right? Never mind.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was called the company was AARU.
I was going to say AARP. Doesn't sound right because that's the retirement organization.
It was like something like that is what
AARU sounds right, because I remember on the This Day in Doctor Who, it always says AARU when it's talking about the movies.
Yeah, AARU Productions. And actually it was co-produced by the BBC, so they might not have needed to redesign the Daleks completely.
Yeah, that might have helped.
So since you said redesign, to get us a little back on topic, the one thing I do not like about the new design is the ears.
The ears are a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Well, the old K-9 model looked like an electronic version of kind of a Scotty dog.
Mhm.
Basically, yeah. A terrier.
And a terrier, Scottish terrier. This one looks like I don't know what the fuck.
It's
mean,
I've seen but it's like the faster kinds of dogs that you. I don't know dog breeds, but I know I've seen what this seems to be modeled off of.
Yeah, I get the feeling I've seen some this particular type of dog that looks like this, but I can't name them off the top of my head.
Like it looks like something where if it was flesh and blood in a cartoon, it would be running all the time.
But yeah, it was definitely a different breed of dog that they had in mind for this one.
Like a frickin' golden retriever or something.
Like a small
Only it's
retriever or
not
something,
golden.
yeah.
Or a lab or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because those are closer to retriever ears than they are anything else. So apparently, K-9 can not only regenerate, but he can change what species.
Change breed, yeah.
What species of dog he generates.
Which is something the Doctor has yet to do.
Give it time.
And also, K-9 has developed much more of an interest in being able to fly. When at most, probably just due to production stuff, of course, and definitely in classic.
Well,
could you imagine in the 70s trying to do wire work with K-9?
Oh yeah.
It was not going to happen.
There's two reasons for it. One, of course, is because the entire prop is actually CGI. Two, the ability to hover and fly means the actors don't have to crouch down to talk to the K-9 model. Which is something that every actor that ever worked with K-9 bitched about.
Right. And it would be twice as hard with a CG because unless they had like a green screen model like that was literally on wheels rolling around with them, they wouldn't know where to look to make eye contact. Whereas here,
I'm sure with this one they probably have something on a marker.
I mean, there's a physical prop. It's just depending on what it's doing.
If it was moving around at just above, like at thigh level all the time, they would be looking in the wrong place all the time. Yeah. Whereas if it's flying, they can always move the CGI model.
Yeah.
If somebody looks in the wrong place.
Yeah, I mean it's CG when it's like at a distance and flying around, but when it's just sort of floating in a shot, it's very clearly just like a prop, maybe on a stick.
Or when it's also seen on the counter that one time too.
But the reason I thought of that was, I don't know if you guys have seen the story where basically for Who Framed Roger Rabbit was supposed to be shorter than an actual person, but in one scene, the actor that was working alongside him accidentally looked at eye level. So they just had Roger do a stretchy thing where he ended up being the height of a person for that one scene where he was stretched up against the wall. That's what I mean about how if they were looking at knee level, they would probably be looking the wrong place all the time. But a flying model, it's not an issue at all.
Now, it never really specified in the show what model of K-9 it was. So it is only Baker that has said, basically, word of God, that it's Mark 1.
Yeah. They never said it out loud on the show?
No.
No.
Because they weren't able to make the reference.
Oh, you're talking about in the K-9 show?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was that visual. I included it in the title card, but it basically it's like it was like when it's regenerating, it shows a visual where it's like upgrading from Mark 1 to Mark 2. Let me pull that up and put it in our chat. Oh no, I almost sent it to the wrong Discord server. And that's the visual. And I've seen people try to justify it in different ways and say, actually, this is the one that was with Romana, but it has a copy of the one that was with Leela, like as a backup or something. And no matter how you try to justify it, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when does this show up in the show?
Like during the scene when when he's like kind of rebooting after the body comes together. Like,
Because I don't remember it.
Yeah.
before he does that flying around left right thing, it's shortly before that.
Hmm.
It's briefly on the screen, but I saw it and I was like, okay, that's probably where people got the Mark II from. And then I searched for screenshots from this episode, and that was one of the things that came up.
And even that's vague anyway, because they can't reference what they mean by Mark 1 in
Right.
this instance.
But
Which is why he's like, oh, I don't remember who I am. I don't remember who the doctor is. Well, he obviously doesn't say the doctor, but I don't remember anything ever.
And by the way, did you catch it when he's probing K-9's memory and a little piece of music comes out and it's only part?
I didn't catch it at that moment. I saw it mentioned elsewhere, but I also noticed those same like 3 notes or whatever is how the theme song for K-9 started before it became different. It's like it started, it was like the do do do, and then it was new music after that.
I didn't catch that.
And I was like, oh, are they like doing a sped up version of the Doctor Who theme? And then right after I finished that thought, it was all new music after that.
Well, yeah, because if they did that, freaking the BBC would sue their ass.
Right. Well, yeah, they would have had to have bought it from the BBC or something, but it was only those few notes, like those 3 notes that they use a couple times, and then other than that, they do not. It's all original. Yeah. It's like the BBC can copyright a song, but they can't copyright 3 notes.
Yeah. And it's funny because to me it's like, okay, so K-9 has lost his memory, but he's still in London, and New Who has an obsession with going back to London a lot. So how the hell?
Yeah.
Like, it's funny that by setting it in London, they make it really hard to distance themselves from the show. When it's like, you're filming in Australia, set it in Australia. Like, that would have made it so much easier.
Well, the problem was this was an Australian-British co-production. So
they're still trying to go after that British audience a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess and I mean, think of the colonial mindset. Australians are more familiar with London than Brits are familiar with like what Sydney or Brisbane.
Or at least I'll put it this way: if they wanted to cheat London, they should have done this in Melbourne, not Brisbane.
Yes, but this is supposed to be future dystopian London.
So, but speaking of which, I could not find any pictures of that skyscape with the CGI billboards and shit. I could not find any pictures of that. I mean, I guess I could have tried to like rewatch the episode and take screen caps, but that would have taken forever.
Okay, so are we done talking about the essentials of, or
unless anyone wanted to talk about the characters before we do the likes and dislikes, but that's probably all the likes and dislikes are going to be about because there's not too much to this episode.
Yeah, and I mean the characters are all new. They're nothing that's been revamped, other than archetypes maybe, but that holds true no matter where you go.
Right.
Yeah. Really, I mean, the only thing that has existed before that exists new in this is K-9. And we had our own little bitch fest about that. I mean, obviously the professor is going to be a doctor-like archetype.
Yeah, we have a professor and 3 companions.
Yep. So, but those are, like I said, archetypes at best. Yeah. So anyway, shall we go through our what we like, what we dislike?
Sure.
All
So-
right. I did roll the review order, and it liked the old one. So Matt, you're first.
I'm still first. Okay, just a second. I'm gonna pull up the episode search I actually did really quick. And all right. So, general thing I liked overall then.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I quite liked the opening theme song. It very much reminded me in Lost in Space for some reason. And as a kid, I definitely enjoyed the Lost in Space music.
All right.
So
Bill?
that's just a general thing, yeah.
Okay. So I guess what I like is that the setting was just unusual enough that you could make sense that it's a futuristic London. I mean, the skyline wasn't familiar, and thanks to Thomas, I know why. But in terms of things like, I could I could conceive of it being realistic sidewalks with robot police. At least I think they're robots, so I think the show goes into
they're
that more
definitely
in
robots.
detail. Okay.
Yeah.
The VR prisons kind of make sense, and they're futuristic enough, so it's not like an alien society that we're like, oh, everything's new around every corner, but it's also not so mundane that you're like, oh yeah, it's 2030 or something. It kind of makes sense to be set where it is, even though I'm sure 2050 London is not actually going to look anything like it, but it's unique enough that it can stand on its own feet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Thomas.
I guess I'll go with the design of the RoboCops. Just like it's funny because like while they seem like they could very easily be transplanted into, which I mean some of these designs could be easily transplanted into like Power Rangers or something. It's like, it's a fairly solid enough design for what
This
they're
was
trying to
basically made
achieve.
with about the same budget.
Mm.
So what I liked is I really liked, as a cyberpunk fan, I liked all the cyberpunk references, like Bill mentioned, the floating screens, the floating hollow screens, virtual reality prison, all the stuff that gave this a cyberpunk feel. But I am slightly disappointed that when you scratch that away, it is the same dystopian future bullshit that the BBC cranked out in the 80s, particularly Doctor Who, and gave up at around 1987.
What you liked?
What's that?
That's what you liked?
I liked the
Okay.
cyberpunk feel. I wish they had gone
Okay.
further with it. I just
Gotcha.
hated the fact that it was not really full cyberpunk because of the they went dystopian.
So is that your like and your dislike at the same time?
No, because I have
Okay.
a separate dislike.
Gotcha. Just clarifying.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go to dislikes. Matt?
General dislike. Is it just maybe it's the first episode and they're kind of struggling or something? But it did seem to me that like all of our main antagonists, aka the kids, the younger adults, etc., all kind of seem cardboardy and flat right now.
They seem archetypical.
A little bit. They have bits of personality, but they're clearly their personality was clearly at least taking a second seat so that K-9 could be the most established character.
I suppose.
I mean,
yeah.
you had the young rebel, the Hermione, and the prick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're basically archetypes at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the adult who isn't always there all the time.
Mm-hmm. And the absent-minded professor.
The absent-minded
If-
professor. Yeah, that's the way of putting it.
If I had to guess, what is it, like 20-something episodes in the season? Each character is probably going to have 2 episodes that flesh them out, and then maybe the finale will have something to do with their actual character traits, and otherwise they'll probably be archetypes most episodes. Or I could be pleasantly surprised, but that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, that would have to be a wait and see. But yeah, as it currently stand now, they're very, very flat.
If I recall, there's at least some character development. I think at least the characters get more development than Yaz. I mean, I know that's not a high bar, but still.
Yeah.
Let's tenderly, slowly reach for that bar,
Although,
shall we?
What did help Yaz is that at least I think she and Ryan knew each other. So in episode 1, she did get more development than any of these 4.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Because apparently the Hermione had heard of the rebel.
And heard
But
him,
really-
and apparently she tried to accost him for attention before.
For like a half a second, I thought it was going to be a Neo Trinity sort of thing introduction, but it was not that cool.
Nope.
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 It's the I can help. I don't need your help.
Mm.
Fucking dicks. Yeah. and the prick is just a prick. I mean, he's basically been the foil mostly thus far.
Yeah, you get hints that he's where he's coming from, but they definitely don't start off with him in a good light by any means. But
Nope.
I'll go on to more on that when it's my turn.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
Did you have any more, Matt?
That was about it for me.
Okay.
It-
So my dislike was Starkey. And he gave Darius good reason to be a prick, because he's the one who comes into a stranger's house, fucks up his experiment, and then when the person who's supposed to be there shows up, he starts asking him, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I think refusing to give his name, and basically being a prick who doesn't belong there. I would have been an asshole in response too. I'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
I know, and mind you, he's supposed to be this elite hacker type. I mean, you see him hacking a billboard, and he can't see a fucking power cord.
He doesn't really get any better until K-9 almost murders him, and then it's like he's like, okay, maybe I should be a little less of an asshole now.
Mind you, the prick is basically egging K-9 on that entire time too. He's
Yeah.
It's kind of the pretty boy asshat type. The Malfoy. Huh. Anyway. But anything else, Bill?
Nope, that's about it.
Okay. Thomas.
The Jixon. Just like the
that's right.
The weird fucking stuttery editing to them either makes
Actually, I
them
didn't
look
mind that. I think
way
that
more
helped kind of hide any bad effects
Like-
with the costume.
The Jixon.
like to me it made them
creatures
look worse.
Creatures rejected by Jim Henson Studios for the Dark Crystal remake.
Like it makes them like the stuttery thing just makes them look at least to me worse because it makes the quality look worse compared to everything else. And then when they're like the only thing on screen and it's just this weird effect on the screen, it's just like I know what you're going for, but this isn't working for me.
I
See,
liked
for me,
it, but
I
I
didn't
could kind
bother.
of guess where you're coming
Didn't bother
from.
me at all. I could see some people might be bothered by it, but for me, I'm like, okay, interesting choice.
I remember seeing them on there. I'm just like, quick, hide your gelf legs. Because they did. They looked like low budget Skeksis. It's like
I was sitting here going, I hope they don't try to name them after Ninja Turtle villains.
See, that's what I was gonna say. If anything, they made me think of the one from Ninja Turtle movie 2. Was it Taka?
Toka.
Yeah.
Toka. Razor was the fox.
Was that how you pronounced it? Toka?
Toka, yes. I've seen that movie enough. I remember.
Got you.
And oddly, the other one was Razar.
I need to rewatch that
Razar,
whole
or-
series because I haven't watched it since I was a kid.
Oh,
I
watched
still
that as a
remember
kid.
Shredder introducing them.
Yeah.
Toka and
Razor.
Razor.
It's written out with 2 Ks, so I always read it as Taka. But
The
That's the thing, man.
babies!
He didn't
The
say Razor,
giant
he said
mutant
Razar. I'm like,
babies!
because I had the freaking CD that the soundtrack CD where they introduced him, so I heard that line a bajillion times.
gotcha.
I had all the VHSs as a kid, and as an adult, I still have them on DVD. I haven't popped open all the DVDs yet, but I do have them.
I had the DVDs at one point. That was years ago.
I let my nephews watch the first one.
Mm.
They were my oldest nephew in particular enjoyed that. Anyways,
The first
yeah.
one was a better movie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. So are we down to me now?
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
So what I don't like is the robotic policeman. Their visuals are fine. Their voice.
Just had a name for them. The CCPCs.
Yep.
Their voice, however, annoyed the fuck out of me.
Yeah, their visuals are
Because-
fine. Their voice is something to.
I know what they're going for
Mm-hmm.
because their voice is a stereotype for British policemen. The "what's all this then?"
Yeah.
kind of voice.
What's all this
Yeah.
then? Basically, yeah.
But it took what was already a campy concept and made it super campy. It made it over the top campy for me. If they had had a robotic voice,
Yeah, if they
I
would have stuck
would've
with a
bought
normal robotic voice, it would have made them at least a little more intimidating, even though they're still hinting a little bit at the camp side of it.
I mean, even if you had a robotic voice with a ringtone modulator going, "What's all this?" That
Yeah.
I could have been fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
stop.
but
Flee.
instead they had to give them the typical Bobby voice.
No,
Yeah.
no, then.
Yes.
Yeah, which comes off as we're aiming this at a youngerish audience, which is funny because if they're aiming it older than SJA, you would think they would go for that. I could give this voice choice a bit more leeway if it was Sarah Jane.
Yeah, if this was Sarah
But
Jane, I would
this-
totally allow it a little bit more leeway,
Well,
but this was supposed
the
to be
thing
like
is-
older teens.
The thing is,
Yeah.
the typical Bobby voice, the only people that are going to get that joke are older people.
For the most part, there's still some people that get it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly
Because
anybody who's seen Monty Python will get it.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing.
what's the average age of the people who have watched Monty Python? Not 10, 12, 13.
Yeah, I will say the average is not that young, but it really as to what age they are at, it really highly depends upon the kind of family you're in.
By the time I graduated high school, my entire familiarity of Monty Python was King Arthur. Holy Grail, I mean.
Holy Grail. Yeah.
Again, it
Yeah.
depends on your family.
Right.
I mean, I was introduced to Monty Python when I was like 7.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it until
You were introduced to it when you were 7 in the 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my uncle Glenn,
And what year, when did it stop airing?
72, 73.
yeah, it would have been over a decade.
Right.
Because it started 68, 69, and it ran for 4 series.
And then
And
there's
then-
the movies. Yeah.
And then they went production on the movies, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
The movies
my
were, it looks
Uncle
like
Glenn
70s.
had, I don't remember if it was the movies or if it was an episode of Flying Circus he had on Laserdisc.
More likely one of the movies, but
And-
it was possible there might have been.
And
the
none of the
series.
kids watching this when it aired had Laserdisc.
No.
Although it is on, I think, Netflix now, but I don't know how many would go out of their way without
Yeah, I'm
their
sure there's
parents
some
doing
places
so.
where you could stream it, and I happen to have all of Flying Circus on DVD.
Yeah, so do I.
It occasionally pops up now and again on DVD. Not very
But
often, though. It keeps selling out.
yeah, no, I just remember the fact that that's how I got introduced to it. But that was a rare thing. You
Mhm.
got to remember, my uncle was an electronics dealer.
Mm.
So he had the latest laser discs. He had all this stuff.
I had to have been 13, and I saw Holy Grail on like Comedy Central or something like that.
Mm. The thing is, I didn't get to see Holy Grail until I was in college.
Mhm.
Um,
But so
I-
the general point is that the
The
humor is a
Bobbies,
little
yeah.
older than the writing style.
yeah,
Mm.
the cultural reference is older, is something adults would get, not the kids, because
Mhm.
the typical Bobby of that they're making fun of in this
Kind of out in the
hasn't been
70s.
around. Yeah, it hasn't been around since the early 80s when they were replaced by the modern Metro Police look.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So making the what's all this then kind of voice is something that's not aimed at the age bracket. It might have been aimed at the parents for, if they were watching it with their
Possibly, if the
kids
parents were watching,
to
yeah,
get
the
to get the
parents would have
joke.
gotten had a chuckle, but other than that,
But it did seem out of place. I would have,
Mm.
like I said, if I was the production staff, I would have given them a robot voice and maybe had them say some typical
some Bobby lines,
speak.
but keep it robotic.
Yes.
What's all this? You there,
Yeah.
Holt?
You're nicked, that kind of thing. But yeah.
You have the right to approach your solicitor.
Anyway, that was my issue. Favorite scenes, Matt?
Favorite scenes? Honestly, old K-9 appearing and starting to just lay into the laser fire on the space and time monsters. Trying to do what K-9 does best, defend his humans.
I don't know where I am. I don't know who you are, but damn it, I'm going to do my job and protect you.
I'm going to do my job and protect you. I know these creatures are violent, and I know you humans are squishy meat things. So here goes the protection route.
So he did shout to it a little bit, but that's due to legal reasons.
Yeah, that's basically for show reasons.
Mm.
Okay. Bill?
I'm going to say the scene where Georgie hacks into the prison software. It communicated a lot about the characters, a little bit about the setting, and definitely a bit about their personalities. So it was probably the most character development we get in the episode, really, during that scene.
Okay. All right, Thomas?
Hmm. I guess I will go with basically like the scene right at the end where like they have like probably the most K-9 moment of it where he doesn't understand the joke
And just
of
goes
like,
into
you're
babbling.
joking. What was I supposed to be? I was
Right.
like, was that supposed to be
Why?
funny?
What did you find it funny?
Wait, if I'm joking, why are you not laughing? Am I bad at this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think my favorite scene, was the one, well, actually Bill took mine, but my backup is the one where Starkey uses the phrases he first said to K-9 to have him recognize him through the identify of the Jixon ooze,
Hmm.
where it uses that to trigger K-9's memory so he'll stand down. I thought that was at least decent.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
All right, least favorite scene. Matt, you're
Least
first.
favorite scene. For being the cyberpunkish cops in this particular universe, wow, can the mutant Ninja Turtles just walk right through? Are their walls made out of paper mache?
What do you what?
The one I think it's Starkey is in that prison, and the turtle thing just literally just
Yeah.
smashes its way in. Like there's no guards, no actual
Yeah.
protection, nothing.
Yeah.
You just basically took mine. Was that same thing?
Just
There's all
like
these alarms going off. No guards. Nobody shows up. You don't even
Mm.
see the frickin' the police.
Yeah.
Show
And
up.
by the time one of them does show up at the
it's
end,
already in the room.
Kind of, and it just kind of gets swatted at, and basically is like, whoa, and is out the door. So it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it gets
okay.
Commander Worf, which also allows Starkey to make his escape. It's like,
Yeah, it
Mm.
was. It was a really slow response, and that bothered me.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
If maybe they deployed throwing a cotton swab at it, it would have actually been more defense.
All right, Bill, your least favorite scene?
So I'm going to say K-9 mistaking Starkey for a Jixen because I couldn't believe it. Like, yes, he smelled like it because of that thing, but he's both in Doctor Who and in this already proven himself capable of parsing large amounts of information and being competent and identifying and recognizing things. And that was too unbelievable for me.
Yeah, like I said, I liked the resolution that they used,
Mm-hmm.
but
the
yeah, the
setup
scenario.
is kind of
Yeah. It would be one thing maybe if he got hit in the head during the same scene, but he didn't.
mm-hmm.
Like,
All
yeah,
right.
that actually confused me with point that I was thinking, wait, did it like transform into him? And this isn't actually Starkey or something?
Yeah, if the Jixen were shapeshifters, I could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Zygons can shapeshift.
See, whereas I thought
Yeah.
like when it was like marking him before that maybe it was like I'm sure I know we've seen in a few stories where like they transfer DNA that way and maybe he was turning into one. And maybe that was going to be the plot where he had to stop himself from turning into a Jixen.
I'm also wondering too if that was the plan, that they were supposed to be shapeshifters, but it got cut because they didn't have the budget for it.
Maybe.
Shapeshifters, we barely have a budget for one shape. What are you doing?
Yeah.
We barely have enough budget for the Muppet Turtles we have.
Because that would explain how it managed to get so far into the prison.
Yeah, that would actually explain that too. That could have been that very much sounds like a loophole now. That got dropped.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thomas.
It's kind of funny because to me there's a lot to choose from. But I think, and it's not even necessarily the episode's fault so much as what I know about the behind the scenes, that this rubbed me the wrong way slightly. But when Darius hits on Georgie, kind of was a bit, that actor's 21 or 20, and he's flirting with an actual 16-year-old.
The character.
I understand the characters are supposed to be closer to age,
the character
but
he's playing,
yeah,
they're all playing teenagers, but only one of them actually is. So at least to me, knowing that before watching, was like,
he's playing a research assistant. That's something you do in college.
That too. He does come off as supposed to be older than these kids, but it's like
he definitely seems like he should be a college student. Yeah. I don't know about the other two.
Yeah, which is funny because they are all Georgie's supposed to be 15, but the actual actress is 16, and the other two are both supposed to be like 15 or 16, but are played by people in their 20s.
And of course,
Actually-
Georgie has that issue where every kid who's supposed to be written as a teenager instead is written as like 20 something, because it's hard to write a good story with an emotional teenager as your character.
Actually, Darius's age is unspecified.
Ah.
But yeah. The 16-year-old is playing a 15-year-old. But yeah, the 20-year-old is playing a 14-year-old. And the 21-year-old is playing a age unknown assistant too.
I think it said, the thing that I read said he was supposed to be like at least 16. So either way, it's like within the context of the show it works, but knowing that the actor is actually like 5 years older than the actual actress he's flirting with and like to the point that makes it like kind of jailbaity, is very like, that's a bit weird.
I mean,
especially because like his voice makes him sound much
Right.
older, even though even though he passes as a teenager. It's like,
if you're looking at it in terms of realism, I would say I absolutely believe that would have happened. If you actually want me to like the character, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. I think that's the general takeaway, anyways, is that he's kind of a prick, anyways, and
right. Well,
that was really not necessary of him.
The only times he's really likable is when he's talking about the professor.
Pretty much. Which again adds to that kind of Doctor Whoism.
Darius's actor went on to portray the lead singer of Motley Crue in the Netflix film The Dirt. Anyway, that was just a little interesting thing. But no, it didn't bother me that much. It just made him seem scummy to me. And yeah,
he's being a naturally scummy character at the moment anyway.
So it made the character that you referred to in the summary exclusively as the prick seem scummy.
Yep.
Which adds more to that prick layer.
Right.
Oh, he was also apparently in The Punisher.
Oh. Which one?
The Netflix series.
Because there's at least 2 movies that are called The Punisher.
I don't know if he's old enough to be in the movie, but maybe. When was? Not to go down the rabbit hole, so I'm not going to look it up.
Maybe one of the later Punisher movies, but yeah.
But yeah, he was in that too.
Okay.
But that's kind of cool. Anyway, I just noticed that. All right, so that was
Thomas's,
that
right?
was Thomas's, yeah.
All right, so my least favorite scene. Oh, God. I had it. I lost it. Oh, right at the very beginning, when Georgie comes up to Stark while he's hacking something. You know, it's blatantly stupid to walk up to somebody while they're doing something illegal and go, "Hi."
Right. Hi, I know you.
Yeah. It shows a complete lack of common sense on her part. And I mean, yes, I know she's basically supposed to be the Hermione, but still.
Okay, it's the one moment where it's believable that she's 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious what happens. They nearly get busted, but still, it's like you knew that was going to happen from the moment she walked up to him. It's
just about.
Yeah. They didn't even bother whispering. It's like. Anyway, that was mine. So, final thoughts.
Back to me. Final thoughts. There's a possibility of something good coming out of this, and maybe something a little more interesting along the way. But I will say it's a very kind of opening. Maybe it'll take a few episodes. I didn't mind the creature effects, and yeah, this K-9 is very CG, but he still at least has the feel of K-9 here and there. the main cast outside. The professor seems interesting. The other rest of the members of the main cast kind of needs some fleshing out. Hopefully that happens. And I didn't
All
mind the
right.
giant turtle, even though I poke fun.
All right.
All right, so K-9 was definitely far and beyond the best part about this episode, and will probably be causing an increase in my rating. Otherwise, it wasn't a bad pilot, but like many pilots, it was just kind of flat, and not especially fleshed out, and not as we mentioned, the characters aren't especially original. I expect the characters to improve over time. But in the meantime, it's just kind of okay. With K-9 being the one exception as something who starts out great and continues. Other than that one scene being pretty much as good as we remember.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. This was an interesting thing to walk into, like, because like this is this obscure that I had no idea this existed until I looked at the stuff that we had to do at one point and was like, what the fuck is this? Looked it up and was like, wait, this is filmed in Australia? How have I never heard of it?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you missed
Though
that
I
one,
guess,
because I think most of
yeah,
us knew that existed before we started the
yeah,
show.
like, given the fact that it aired when I was like turning 19 is when it started airing.
So it's
It's
already kind of
like,
past your age group
yeah,
to
like
begin
I
with.
was already past the age bracket for it, so I was like, okay. But even then, and also it aired on Channel 10, which I would have expected the ABC, not a commercial channel, but whatever. Um, this is just really weird. I mean, I kept laughing every time. At some points I couldn't get the skyline at night properly to realize it was London, so I thought, oh, that could maybe pass for Brisbane. And then no, they show it during the day, and it's like, nope, that's London. Especially when like you actually see K-9 fly past Big Ben at one point. It's like, okay, yep, definitely London. Which I'm gonna laugh at how they're gonna try and pass off Brisbane for London, but yeah,
We'll see.
they'll
It's been
probably
mostly on set so far.
eh, there wasn't really a decent short of like least favorite aspect. There wouldn't have been a chance to bring this up, but to me, a lot of the actors sound dubbed. Or just the dubbing over of them after the fact. Like the ADR sounds really obvious to me, and I think it's also because you've got, from what I can tell, the Professor and Starkey are Canadian actors, and Darius and Georgie are Australian actors. So you have no one who's British affecting British accent.
Starkey's Australian.
So there you go. So there's like three of them. Yeah, so there you go. Like the three kids are all Australian trying to sound British, and the professor is Canadian, I think. So, and if he's not, then he's Australian as well. So you've got generally people who aren't from England trying to do an English accent, and while the accent works, it feels like their acting suffers because of it to a point. Not so much the professor, but everyone else. Sounds like they're barely able to act because they're
the three kids are Australian. The professor is Canadian.
Yeah. So like, I mean, yeah, like the guy playing the professor can make it work, but the kids, to me, it sounds like they're trying too hard. It's like that problem when people are trying to do an accent that aren't theirs, and the acting just goes to shit because they're trying too hard to keep the accent as well as act. So it's maybe they get better at it as time goes on.
Carrie Fisher in Star Wars. And their accent comes and goes depending on the scene.
Or they're Nicola Bryant and sound American, but then say things like glass.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like this. I kept repeating to myself before watching this, I am not the target audience. I'm not the target audience. Just so I'm like, I can judge this a bit fairly, because again, it's just like I'm friggin' 30. That I'm not who they were aiming at. But even then, it's just like, this is such a flat start. It's
How old
like
were
when
you
it
in
ended,
2009?
I was turning 19. Like this
Oh.
this started airing a month before. Oh wait, no, 2009. I thought it started in 2010.
31st
see-
October 2009 was
Hmm.
the
It ran
original
from
release.
2009 into 2010.
Okay, so yeah, I was turning 19, and then like by the time it finished, I probably would have been.
So you're maybe
Ish.
maybe 3 years older than the target audience.
Actually, he's in Australia. It would have been the 3rd of April 2010.
Ah,
Yeah, so I would have been 19 by
Australia
then.
didn't get it first.
Well, they're making it for the UK market, so that'd be why.
Oh, that's true. It would have been delayed, wouldn't it?
mm.
Mind you, the UK only got the first episode first. After that, they didn't get to see it again for like. Actually, this makes no sense by the air date, because it says that Regeneration aired on 31 October 2009. Liberation, which is the next episode, aired on the 9th of October 2010. Yet the third episode didn't aired on the 3rd of April 2010. What the hell?
Sounds like the BBC was messing about with when the episodes aired.
It's possible.
Yeah, but like,
Did they purposely
this
try
is
to tank it? Ooh.
yeah, like maybe
It was
it'll.
not the BBC. This aired in the UK on Disney XD.
Disney was trying
Which
to ruin it.
Yeah, it's like it'll be interesting just to watch more of it out of morbid curiosity at this point, and like see where it goes and if it does get better. But as of right now, it's like, and part of me is also like, did this really have to be K-9? Because this very easily could have just been any robot dog, really.
Yeah, they could have just literally put a robot dog from literally nothing and just gone, hey, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But I think the K-9 creators were somehow involved, so that's why.
It was Bob Baker that was creating it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been trying to get a K-9 series off the ground forever.
Since the 70s. K-9.
And originally it was Jetix, if you remember Jetix, that started this ball, but by the time it aired, Jetix had turned into Disney XD. I remember when this was first announced in 2006. Of course, we were really big on Doctor Who at the time because it had just come back to TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the news sites said, oh, yes, K-9 is getting his own series. It was like literally a month at the top after School Reunion aired. So K-9 was at the absolute height of everything.
So it was early enough that you weren't like, oh, we lost K-9 and Sarah Jane Adventures for this?
No, we
correct.
just had heard about it. We actually didn't hear any details. We were just like, oh, K-9 series, K-9 series, K-9 series. Then the details came in, and that came out, and then we're like, Oh.
Yeah, because you remember I was all excited about this information.
I was excited. I saw that one K-9 episode and like, oh, that was kind of cool. Yeah, let's do more retro robot talk. Oh. Hmm.
And then I got to this episode and I'm just like, this is not an auspicious start.
No, this is already kind of feeling like partway to what I was worried about.
This is, I mean, the quality does feel domestic Power Rangers, not Sentai shows from Japan, but what freaking Saban made.
But Saban then gone to Disney, then back to Saban made, yes.
Yeah, but
short in New Zealand Power Rangers.
Yes.
Go New Zealand Rangers.
And I never liked that part. I loved the action in Power Rangers. I hated the freaking
the action was good. The redubbing was okay during those action scenes too, but the whole like constantly forcing these Americanized characters in was touch and go depending on what season.
Yep. And but I mean, this felt like that same quality of filming, and I'm like, and special effects, because let's face it, the creatures in this do not look that good. Like I said, they look like they were rejected from Jim Henson. The new K-9 is visually okay, but lacks some of the what would you call it?
Charm,
I guess, of the old model.
Yeah.
John Leeson, however, still does a good job.
Yeah. John Leeson still does a good job, and obviously the writers care enough to give K-9 some K-9isms.
He's basically carrying the show at this point.
So
and
far.
At least at that far, it made me willing to keep watching. So let's rate this sucker. Actually, I have to get back to where I can rate this sucker. I've been working on some other tabs here. Okay. So, Matt, you are first.
If it was just based on John Leeson, I could almost just based on K-9, I can literally see this at least making it a 4. But because he's got so many bland characters around him, it pulls it back to the 3.5 for me.
All right, Bill.
I'll say it's 3.5, and the 0.5 is entirely K-9 tracking it up.
Thomas.
Honestly, the lack of a complete story and just a lot of the stuff dragging this down.
From what I can read, by the way, this is a 2-parter, but I was not aware of this when we scheduled it.
Yeah, they don't title it like a 2-parter
either. It's not named that way, yeah.
If you want, if you guys want, we could hold this rating.
We can hold the rating and maybe combine the both if we feel it's attached enough.
I will cancel your scores and hyphen this out, and we can give a combined rating next week.
Yeah, let's do a singles this week and then do a combined next week if we feel like it's
Are the rest of you good with that?
Yeah.
Because are we sure it's a 2-parter? Should we write it down and then see?
I was reading the descriptions on Wikipedia, and
all the wikis keep saying it's a 2-parter.
Going on. The first sentence in the wiki summary is, having been tagged by Jigsaw Slime, Starkey is yada, 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 yada. So they're literally continuing from the plot line here. And after this, the Jigsaw no longer become a thing.
So it's just the first 2 then.
Okay. So they're not like this. I thought they were like the season big bads
I was kind of wondering that too.
The end of the season.
No, there's a bad guy called the Corvin that starts up after that. That comes back later in the season. But but I do not see any further references to the Jigsaw. So apparently the big bads turn out to be, well, actually, I'll wait for you to get to it, but it's not the Jigsaw. So apparently this is a two-parter. So if you guys want, I will hold the ratings. Matt's agreeing. How about you, Bill?
Okay.
Thomas,
Works
you
for
good
me.
with it too?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
'Cause
I
it-
am now.
yeah.
I am holding the average till next week.
Hmm.
So we will then watch next week's and give it a combined rating. Again, this was because I was unaware that it was a two-parter.
Most of us were unaware it was a two-parter.
I have not watched these since they originally aired.
Hmm.
And, you know, the way I am, I got them because it wasn't airing in the U.S., I got them through special means.
Mm.
And I watched them, and I was like, okay.
Okay, and bye-bye.
They went in one ear, they went out the other. And I had forgotten completely about what this happened by the time I hit probably episode 18, 19. Because after that, there was a very long pause before I was able to get the remaining episodes. It did eventually air on the Sci-Fi Channel here in the U.S. But that was like 2012 by the time they got it.
Mm.
And I think I remember them airing it for like, they aired it all in one day. and then they aired it like, you know, once a week for one run, and then I never saw it again. And by that time, you know, it was SY, FY, and I'd stopped watching sci-fi anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and take us out, Bill.
All right. So yeah, please let us know what you think in the comments below. Although I guess don't be too harsh. Well, actually, yeah, you can let us know if you feel it's a two-part or not. Why not?
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe to keep getting our exports on YouTube every week. Like or dislike the video, and of course, follow us on Twitch to see our new streams every Wednesday night.
All right, so next week we're going to continue down this rabbit hole and see where it goes. I suspect by the end we're going to be asking, why didn't I take the blue pill? It's K-9, Liberation, written by Shane Armstrong and S.P. Krause, and starring John Leeson, Philippa Coulthard, Keegan Joyce, Daniel Weber, and Robert Maloney. We will see you next week.
I know Kung Fu.